You're pretty, smart, gorgeous.
Roughly 1:30 p.m., a body was recovered from the Red River near the Alexander docks.
Winnipeg police confirmed late today that Tina Fontaine's remains were pulled from the water at the Alexander docks, and police say the death is a homicide.
A tragic death that not only broke a community's heart, but set it on fire.
Hey everyone, it's your girl Layla. Welcome back to my channel. Okay guys, so I know I've been slacking on this particular playlist on my channel and I definitely still want to keep it going, but I had Spooktober last month. I've been out and hiking all summer, but it has not been my intention to make you guys wait so long for a new video, so I'm really truly sorry about that. But in today's video, I'm going to be doing an mmiw case, and this is going to be on Tina Fontaine. So if you guys are not already subscribed, please go ahead, click the subscribe button below. I upload 3 times a week, Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday. I would just like to do a really quick disclaimer before I get started on this case. I mean no disrespect to anyone I talk about in this video, including Tina, her family, and anyone else that are involved in Tina's case. I did my research through news articles from CBC, CTV, Global News, and other major news outlets online. So all of this information is public information. But yeah, regardless of that, this case is really dark. It sparked a national inquiry into the missing and murdered Indigenous women. This case sparked a national inquiry. So this case is huge for mmiw cases. Tina became basically the poster child for missing and murdered Indigenous women. This case took place back in 2014, so this case is really heavy, really deep. There's so much with this case. Like, there's so much that I found that I have 14 pages of research on this case, and I'm hoping to get through it quite smoothly because I don't have everything in the correct order because there's just so much information that I found. This case, unlike most of the mmiw cases that I've covered on my channel, this case police actually worked really hard on. They failed her very early on, and you'll see that when I kind of go over a timeline of her last 24 hours. But the police failed her once, and they definitely did not want to fail her in her death. Everyone was watching the police work that went into this one, and they put hundreds, if not thousands of hours into this case trying to convict this man. When researching this case absolutely broke my heart. I feel like every time I do these mmiw cases, I'm living as these women as I'm doing my research, and honestly, it brings me to tears sometimes, and this was one of those cases. This case is so heavy. I am gonna kind of jump back and forth in certain points in time, but I'll let you guys know when I'm doing that. But I try to keep it as organized as possible. I'm gonna be talking about Tina first, then I'm gonna be talking about her family, I'm gonna be talking about her last 24 hours, her summer in Manitoba, the trial, and about the man that was accused of killing her. Tina Michelle Fontaine was born on January 1st, 1999 in Winnipeg, Manitoba. She was born to parents Tina, aka Valentina is her real name, Duck, and I'm going to be referring to her as Valentina because their names are exactly the same, and it's gonna get kind of confusing, so I'm gonna refer to her as Valentina. So her parents were named Valentina Duck and Eugene Fontaine. She was her mother's second child, and she was taken by Family Protective Services out of her mother's custody when she was just 1 year old. It happened once again when she was 2 years old, and then she was returned to the custody of her father. When Tina was 5, her father decided it was the best decision to put Tina as well as her younger sibling, with her great aunt and uncle, Thelma Fable and Joseph Fable. Tina lived with them in Powerview, Pine Falls, Manitoba, which is really close to the Saugeen First Nation. In 2011, when Tina was just 12 years old, her father was murdered. He was actually beaten to death, and he was only 41 years old. But his assailants were both convicted of manslaughter. Tina's aunt Thelma reported that the death was very, very hard on Tina, and quoted, "She was very hurt, very lost. That's when she drifted away." Tina would be failed by the system so many times throughout this case, and this is one of the first times she was failed by Child Family Services. And this was when she did not receive grief counseling for the murder of her father. They knew that Tina was struggling, but she did not receive the help she needed. Reports state that at this point in time, Tina was very frustrated with school. She was missing school a lot. She was missing assignments a lot. She even got suspended for getting into verbal altercations as well as physical altercations in school. And this was just really, really out of her character. At this point, she was reported missing 3 times, and she was also getting treatment for her self-harm. Keep in mind, at this point, Tina is between the age of 12 and 15 years old. She is just a child, and she's going through all of this pain, all of this grief, all of this loss, and she's not getting the help that she needed. She was reported at this point to have asked for help, but she just didn't get it. But she asked for it. So she knew that she needed help. She knew she was feeling grief and loss, and those are normal things to feel when, you know, your parent is taken away from you. But she wasn't given the help that she needed. She was failed by CFS for the very first time. So before we move on to Tina's last summer in Winnipeg, we're gonna really briefly be talking about her family. Tina's paternal grandfather was a survivor of the residential school system. So if you guys are unfamiliar with the residential school system, please look it up and do some more research on it. There's ongoing issues with the residential school system. It was a horrible, horrible thing that happened in Canada. It's a really horrible part of Canadian history. I could do a full video talking about the residential school system. It's a very, very large topic, so I'm not going to really get into that into this video, but just know that a lot of Indigenous people were affected by it. Indigenous people are still affected by it today. A lot of abuse went on during those times. My heart goes out to those that were affected by the residential school system. The last residential school closed in 1996, and Indigenous people are still dealing with the after effects of it. Now, this led to years of violence and alcohol abuse from Tina's grandfather, passed on to her father, Eugene. This prompted Eugene to leave home at the age of 12 years old. He was just a child, 12 years old, to live on the streets of Winnipeg, and that's where he met Tina's mother, Valentina. At this point, Eugene was struggling with alcohol addiction as well. Valentina was raised on the Blood Vein First Nation about 250 kilometers away from Winnipeg. Valentina herself was removed several times from her home as a child. Valentina was taken away from her family home starting from the age of 6, and it happened several times thereafter. She herself, just like Tina, had experienced so much childhood trauma, and it was not properly dealt with, again, just like Tina, her daughter. So by the age of 10, Valentina was taken out of her family home permanently. She was moved around repeatedly and was sexually exploited by adults. This caused her to use alcohol and drugs to cope at a very young age. CFS, aka Child Family Services, the program that took Tina away from her parents, as well as the program that Tina reached out to for help when her father was murdered, did not help Valentina at all. So by the age of 12 is when Valentina met Eugene. So Valentina was 12 years old and Eugene was 23 when they first met. In 1994, Tina was reported saying to a counselor, quote, "I'm feeling depressed, suicidal, isolated, alone, and unloved." In 1996, Valentina was only 14 years old when she gave birth to her first child, and this child was immediately taken away by CFS. In early 2014, at the age of 15, Tina really craved a connection with her mother because she was still dealing with the loss of her father. Her aunt Thelma basically told her, you know, if you do really good in school this year, then of course you can visit your mother this summer. And her mother at this point in time lived in Winnipeg. Tina was still living with her great aunt and uncle. So Tina did really, really well in school that year. Her aunt was really, really proud of her. And of course, she had to say yes when it came to that point where Tina was wanting to visit her mother. Tina's mother, Valentina, at this point was still struggling with her addictions. She turned to sex work, which made her lose custody of all of her children. Valentina at this point was still just really struggling and trying to get her life back on track. So when Tina came to visit her, she wasn't really in the proper mindset, so she soon kicked Tina out onto the streets. July 17th and 18th of 2014, Tina was put into custody of CFS, and they housed her in a downtown hotel, which apparently this doesn't happen anymore. It just seems like it's very dangerous to do that to, you know, minors and children. So at this point, Tina is 15 years old, and they're basically putting her in a hotel to live by herself at 15 years old. So they don't do this practice anymore after this case, after what happened to her. This was just definitely not a good situation. So by July 23rd, Tina was staying at a youth shelter between July 23rd and July 24th of 2014. She missed curfew twice, and her bed was unfortunately given away to another youth. On July 31st, 2014, Tina was reported missing for the first time, and she was eventually located. So she was staying with her other aunt between August 1st and 3rd. That is the August long weekend in Canada. So she was staying with her aunt at that point. What happened to Tina between August 5th and 8th is unclear because it's based on speculation and other people's recounts. Okay, so I'm gonna get into Tina's last 24 hours in Winnipeg. So this was August 8th, 2014. She was picked up by a man in a truck in the west end of downtown Winnipeg in the wee hours of the morning. Police had pulled them over under suspicion. This was a man trying to pick up a prostitute, and the man was taken into custody. But at this point, Tina did have a missing person warrant. I don't think that's the proper word for it, but she did have a flag that said she was missing in the system, but police missed that. So the system failed her yet again.
She was flagged. So when a child is flagged, they're supposed to keep her, but they let her go.
They asked her if she was okay and if she needed a ride anywhere. Tina said she was fine, and they left her on the side of the road and took the man into custody. So those two police officers were soon suspended and then eventually quit the police force. This was at 5 a.m. on August 8th. So they left her on the side of the road. At 9:55 a.m., Tina is seen on CCTV footage at the university. She is tired. She is struggling to even walk at this point. She's staggering around, and she finally passed out between two parked cars, and a security officer sees this happening, so they call EMS. By 11:20 a.m., Tina is taken to the Health Sciences Center by EMS, and she is severely underweight. Traces of alcohol, marijuana, and other substances are found in her body. She is discharged under the care of social work. By 3:51 p.m., Tina is dropped off at yet another hotel downtown by her social worker, and this is again another shelter for youth in crisis. Keep in mind, again, she's still a child. She's still 15 years old only, and she's being transported to this hotel in downtown, again, to live by herself. She makes her way to the hotel room alone but doesn't stay. No one stops her yet again. So the system is just continuously failing and failing and failing this girl. Police, doctors, EMS, social worker have all seen Tina in 24 hours at this point. And 9 days later, her body washes up on shore on the Red River. She's wrapped in a duvet cover weighed down with rocks. And pathologists can't even determine a cause of death, but they ruled this a homicide. At her death, Tina only had alcohol and marijuana in her system, so there was no illicit drugs to suggest that she overdosed on anything. This death was extremely suspicious to police. So I'm gonna jump back just slightly and I'm gonna go into a witness account of the day that Tina went missing, because a witness did come forward. Her name was KATRINA and she had met Tina at the youth shelter. So she said that she spent Tina's last 24 hours with her, and this is reportedly what happened. I did not include it in the timeline because this is, like, again, another witness account. I'm also going to be talking about Tina's boyfriend at the time as well as the accused before I get into the trial portion. So KATRINA was 18 years old at the time and stated that she met Tina on August 7th between 10 and 11. So this was before the day that Tina was taken into social worker custody and all of that stuff that happened. This was the day before. They went to a youth shelter to eat around 2:30 in the morning. KATRINA believed that Tina was drunk at this point and she had asked staff at the shelter if she could stay overnight, but she refused to give them her first name, possibly because she was a missing person at this time. After this, Tina got into a truck. So this is the truck that police had pulled over on the morning of August 8th. And this was when KATRINA had lost contact with Tina until 8 p.m. that day. Presumably when she left that hotel, she went to meet up with KATRINA. Tina was believed to have left the hotel at 3 a.m. So the next day. No, she was seen at the hospital and all of that stuff on August 8th. So this is 3 a.m. the next morning. So sorry, the timeline is a little bit confusing. This was when the two were approached by a man on Ellis Avenue and he offered money for sex from both of these two women. So as they were following this man, it was dark, of course, it was 3 a.m. They were following this man down the street and KATRINA said she reportedly lost track of them and she had not heard from Tina after that. She was then reported missing again on August 9th. Okay, so now I'm gonna get into the trial. So police really believed that they found the man responsible for Tina's death really early on because of a lot of witness accounts around this man, and he finally went to trial on December 8th, 2015. Like I said, police really and truly believed that he was who killed Tina. They put so much police work into this case, and they even created an undercover sting operation to record this man and, you know, try to get more information about what he was saying about Tina's case. Police charged this man, Raymond Cormier, with second-degree murder. And they believed that he killed Tina because he had sex with her and she was underage and he didn't want to be seen as a pedophile. He had 92 convictions. 92 convictions at this point when he was being charged for Tina's murder. And this wouldn't be the end of his criminal history. It was reported that Tina actually had called 911 on Cormier, and I'll get into how they met in a little bit, but Tina actually called 911 on Cormier a few days before she went missing. So this was around August 6th. She had called the cops to report that he had stolen a truck.
I like to report a blue truck that was stolen earlier today.
And also reports state that he was trying to have sex with Tina and Tina did this out of anger. She also did this out of anger because he had sold her bike for drugs. Okay, sorry, I'm just gonna go back just a little bit and I'm gonna be talking about Tina's boyfriend Cody that summer and how they met Cormier in the first place and why police even suspected Cormier. So The information I could find about CODY was taken from the trial itself. That's why I kind of started off talking about the trial first. I'm going to be talking about what CODY had said during the trial itself. So CODY Mason was Tina's boyfriend that summer. They started dating in July, and he was from St. Therese Point. The last time CODY saw Tina was 2 days before she went missing, and this was on August 6th. So this was when CODY went back to St. Therese Point, and reportedly at the time Tina was very upset that he left her. CODY states that he met Tina that summer and they were couch surfing together. So they had no proper residence to stay. This was after Tina's mom had kicked her out, and that's when they started dating. So they were couch surfing together. He was drinking with Tina on the street one day, and that's when they met Cormier, who introduced himself as Sebastian. So upon their very first meeting, I find this so wild because this was when they met for the very first time. CODY straight up asked Sebastian, or Cormier, I'm gonna refer to him as Cormier in this video. So CODY asked Cormier if he and Tina could crash at his place. So keep in mind, they're meeting for the very first time and he's asking this man if they can crash at his place. Cormier agrees and takes them to his basement. But I don't know if it's his basement because supposedly he was also couch surfing himself. He was homeless at the time. So I don't know whose basement it was, but it was a place to stay for the night. So he let Tina and CODY stay in that basement that night. He reportedly took them to several houses that summer, likely because he was homeless and he was trying to, you know, kind of help them out, I guess. Maybe they were friends at that point in time. They seemed to be very friendly with each other, so he helped them kind of go from house to house and find a place to stay every night. And CODY reported that Cormier gave him and Tina gabbies, which is a street name for gabapentin, and they all snorted these gabapentin pills together that summer. So CODY's testimony will be very important later on when I talk about Cormier and how he accounts meeting Tina and CODY for the first time and kind of how their relationship went. So keep in mind all that I've just said about how they've met through CODY's eyes, because I feel like CODY is a more believable person than someone on trial for murder, you know what I mean? Okay, so we're gonna talk about the duvet that Tina was found in. So this was the main piece of evidence in the trial, was the duvet cover itself. So Cormier was reported to be staying with someone named Ida that summer. So Ida Beardy had also testified during the trial as well. She stated that Cormier lived in a tent in her backyard that summer of 2014. She stated that this is when she saw the duvet for the first time. So she met Cormier at a coffee shop that her daughter worked at. He introduced himself as Frenchie. She said he had all kinds of blankets that she'd seen in his tent, but she remembers this particular pattern on the duvet cover. Okay, remember how I said very frequently throughout this video that police worked really hard on this case? Well, they really did work hard on this case. So police found that this duvet was only sold at Costco. This was a Costco duvet cover that Tina's body was wrapped in. And police were able to track down a list of 800 people that had purchased this duvet from Costco. So there's 3 different Costcos in Winnipeg, and police were able to track down a list of 800 people that own this exact same duvet. And police went through the list and tried to find connections between the person that purchased the duvet and Tina. There was 17 hair samples taken from this duvet, and none of them matched Cormier. So this part is confusing. So there were 17 hair samples in total taken, and Tina's hair was not accounted for the 14. So 3 of the hair samples taken, as far as my understanding, were Tina's, and the 14 were of someone else's, and these did not match Cormier. The police had worked so hard on this case because not only did they know, they knew in their minds that Cormier murdered Tina. But the public was watching them hardcore. This case was very, very publicly televised. This case, you know, was on the news all the time, and they knew that they had failed her already, and they did not want to fail her in her death. They wanted to solve this case really badly, so they conducted an undercover sting operation. And this is something that's very controversial in policing, especially here in Canada. You know, Operation Mr. Big. Police really wanted to get the proof that they needed to convict this man. So they bugged Cormier's apartment. Also, undercover police officers were reportedly staying in the apartment that Cormier was living at during that point as well. They had to go through hundreds and hundreds of hours of audio footage and try to transcribe it. So the transcribed audio footage is what they tried to use in court as evidence, and this audio footage was not very clear. So despite all of this time and effort and trying to convict Cormier for this crime, there was not enough forensic evidence, and the audio was supposedly very poor quality, that Cormier was acquitted of this crime. I'm gonna get into kind of like the after effects of Tina's case and what Cormier said afterwards. Cormier sat down to an interview with CBC where he talked about the trial and he talked about trying to clear his name. So in 2012, Cormier was serving time in prison in Winnipeg. Like I said, he had 92 convictions prior to Tina's case, and he was in jail at that point in 2012. He's originally from New Brunswick, and he decided to stay in Winnipeg. He lived on the streets and collected scrap metal for cash. He states he met Tina for the first time with her boyfriend on the street when he was carrying a muffler with him. He didn't want to stop, but he did stop to talk to them because they said they had weed. Cody again asked Cormier if he had a place that him and Tina could crash at that night, which is what I mentioned from earlier from the trial. So Cody confirmed that. He asked Cormier for a place to stay. Cormier said yes, and he gave the couple his last $20 that day because they were hungry. He stated in this interview that he hung out with Tina a maximum of 4 times, but told police otherwise. He was quoted saying 5, 6, 7, no more than 10 times that they hung out together. A CFS worker had also testified that Tina had mentioned she was hanging around an older meth user that summer, which was Cormier. She said that they would just chill together. So Cormier stated that the last time he saw Tina was when Tina's boyfriend Cody had left, and Tina was very upset. She was crying. She came to his door and she ran into his arms. He stated at this point, "If you are old enough, then I'm all for it. Let's go have some fun." So he had presumed that Tina wanted more with him because Cody was gone. He told police that he initially believed that Tina was 18 years old. So you remember that undercover sting operation? Well, Cormier was reported saying that he had sex with Tina multiple times. In this interview, he stated otherwise. He said that he didn't, and he was hoping to have a fling with her. Hey guys, so I was trying to finish my outro for this video, but I had to run out really quick, so I'm filming the rest of it in my car. I'm so sorry, but I really wanted to end this video and not so abruptly. I only have really the last part of what I was gonna say, and then that was the end of the video, so I'm so sad my camera did not last through that. The last thing that I wanted to say really was to finalize the case. So basically, Cormier was acquitted of killing Tina in 2018. He also left Winnipeg at this time, and police state that the case is still open and they're not seeking any further suspects. So what I get this to mean is that they know that Cormier killed Tina. It's a matter of evidence and forensic evidence that they don't have. So they're not seeking any other suspects, but they still feel like it is Cormier. And the very last update I have on the case, or Cormier specifically, is that he was arrested in 2021 yet again. He did not leave his life of crime behind, even though During his CBC interview, it really seemed like he had turned his life around. He'd left Manitoba. I assumed that he had gone back to New Brunswick, but apparently he was in Ottawa at the time, and he has been arrested as of 2021 because of break and entering different apartment buildings in downtown Ottawa. So he's not left his life of crime behind. He's still, you know, being charged for things and doing these petty crimes and stuff like that. That is pretty much all for the Tina Fontaine case. If you guys have anything that you can add, if you guys have any, you know, leads or like any information at all on this case, I will leave their number below, and you guys can contact the Winnipeg police or the RCMP with any information that you have. So that is pretty much all for this video. It was really deep and really heavy one, and I really hope you guys learned something. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button below if you haven't already. I upload 3 times a week, Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if you guys want to request any cases, you can always leave a comment down below or email me. My email address is in the description box, or you can Instagram message me, tweet me, anything like that if you have any case suggestions for the future. I will see you guys soon. Bye.